F1 in 2025 will feature the largest rookie class in 10 years since Sainz and Verstappen joined the grid in 2015, and this year is set to be a big year for the new class of F1 drivers, rising up through the ranks together, but also sort of at different spots in their careers and experience. We're here to go over each of the rookies, some of their racing history, and I'm going to give my prediction on how each of their seasons will go. Let's get started with Ollie Bearman. Uh, Kind of a big season for him, in not really in F2, but more in F1. Showed great potential when he filled in the second race of the season for Carlos Sainz in Saudi Arabia in the Ferrari, taking P7 in his F1 debut and finishing ahead of Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton in that race. So pretty impressive right off the bat. There was videos of him and his neck fucking snapping when he's going around corners at that track, and obviously it's a street circuit, so it's very demanding. And on short notice for him, very good showing, and that kind of set the pace for him and kind of set the tone for the rest of the year moving forward into his new spot at Haas. In Azerbaijan, he filled in for Kevin Magnussen for the first time in the season. Just missed out on qualifying in Q3 in qualifying, taking P11 and starting the race in P10 and finishing in P10, taking the last point and finishing ahead of his teammate Nico Hulkenberg, who took P11. So again, great showing there on short notice once again. Less short notice, I think, that time, but another street circuit, another really tough, demanding track, and did well there. So another great showing. And then we had him for the third time this season in Brazil in the wet weather, filling in for Kevin Magnussen once again. And kind of a rough weekend for him in the rain. Had a couple incidents. Had a penalty for hitting Albon, I believe, one of the Williams at one point, and was the only Haas to actually end up finishing the race. Because if you remember, Nico Hulkenberg had that incident where he pulled off, he skirted off the track, and then the marshals pushed him back on. They ended up getting a black flag anyway. So he was the only one to finish there. Didn't finish in the points, and he had some penalties and some problems himself. But still, did better than his teammates. So not too much more you can ask for there. Um, Bearman finished in P12 this year in the F2 Championship, winning 3 sprint races and finishing in the points behind Colapinto, Hadjar, Antonelli, um, and Bortoleto, obviously. But arguably, he could be the biggest prospect of this group, despite his P12 in F2. But considering the F1 results this year, he might be the best prospect on this list and the best rookie coming in from this list. Bearman did have to sit out the postseason testing this year because technically, due to his experience in F1, he's not a rookie anymore. And in postseason testing, you're only allowed to run one veteran and one rookie. So obviously, Haas ran with Ocon, who was coming over from Alpine. So we didn't get to see that comparison with him in the postseason tire testing in Abu Dhabi. My prediction for Ollie Bearman for this season, I think Bearman will be impressive and outperform Ocon more than other rookies will outperform their teammates. I don't know that he'll necessarily finish ahead of him in points, but I think he will be more competitive with his teammate than some of the other rookies on this list. Haas has been solid in 2024, especially towards the end. If they can keep that up, I can see Bearman consistently getting in the points, taking those P9, P10 spots, and possibly scoring more points than Ocon by the end of the season. The wet weather is where we've seen Ocon shine recently and Bearman struggle. So those races will be more favored towards Esteban, but I think Bearman will be competitive and retain the seat on the Ferrari back team in a hopes of a future spot with the Scuderia. Seems like he'd be right in line with what they're looking for, and he's been good in F1 so far. Got big points for them early in the season, considering how close the constructors ended up being. So that was crucial in hindsight. So I have high hopes for Ollie Bearman this year with Haas. Unfortunately, he's with fucking Esteban Ocon, who's like the worst fucking teammate you can have, other than like I don't know Sergio Perez and Lance Stroll. But anyway, let's move on to the next rookie on the list, Gabriel Bortoleto, who is the protege of Fernando Alonso. The Brazilian was part of the McLaren program until signing with Kick Sauber for a full-time seat in 2025. Bortoleto has little to no experience. He had some FP1 runs with McLaren, but other than that, not much. Very little time in an F1 car in comparison to somebody like Ollie Bearman. He took a close win in the Drivers' Championship this year in the last race against rival Isack Hadjar, who's also on this list, and secured the F2 Championship after a season that only included 2 feature race wins and no sprint wins for him. So more the consistency than the big wins. He was awarded just recently FIA Rookie of the Year award, won previously by the likes of Oscar Piastri, Yuki Tsunoda, Charles Leclerc, Alexander Albon, and of course Max Verstappen. Um, he's unproven in F1. He might have the highest potential on paper out of anybody, but we're yet to see what he really has to offer at F1 pace. Bortoleto came P18 out of 23 in postseason testing, ahead of a few F2 counterparts and ahead of Oscar Piastri, which that's not really saying much because obviously Piastri's going to be a little quicker than him, but behind some of those other guys on the list. Not great in the postseason testing for him. So my prediction for Gabriel Bortoleto in 2025, I think he will have a solid season and at moments will outperform Hulkenberg in a given session. Whether it's a practice or actually a qualifying or race, I could see him getting the better sometimes. I could see him getting some points on the board later in the year if Sauber can continue to develop. They did a great job in the last couple of races in order to get Guan Yu Zhou a chance to score points, and they were pretty competitive with their new wings towards the end of the season when everybody else was kind of done developing. I think Bortoleto will be in the seat all year, and I also think he will keep the seat for the Audi switchover in 2026. Seems like there's a lot of hype behind him, so I think that he'll be able to retain that spot. Despite maybe not having the best season out of all these rookies here. Let's move on to the next rookie on the list, Isack Hadjar. He is a second-year F2 driver that had a terrible P14 in the Drivers' Championship in 2023. Oh my God. And came within one race of taking the championship in 2024. So a big swing for him. He was the only one of the only one of these drivers, and the only one in F2 this year to win 3 feature races, which is obviously the main race, the full length race for them. And he won the FIA Performance of the Year award. He has no F1 experience officially and has been working his way through the Red Bull program and is potentially getting his call up a little bit too early here. He had some struggles this year, had a bit too much crashing maybe for Red Bull's liking, but I guess he'll fit right in with Yuki Tsunoda, right? Uh, Shown a bit of lack of composure on the radio and has been having, like I said, a couple too many incidents. And again, we'll fit right in with Tsunoda because you know how he was in the radio too. But again, the only reason I'm mentioning this at all is because you know how it goes when a Red Bull driver has a temper and is outspoken. So we've seen how that goes for Tsunoda. So hopefully it's not the same fate for Isack Hadjar. He was unable to score in 13 of the sessions in the season, including the final race where the title was on the line, and he's just showed some inconsistency. In the postseason testing in the Red Bull, Hadjar finished P15 ahead of Bortoleto and Tsunoda. But again, that's not it's not saying everything, but it shows that he's close. My prediction for Isack Hadjar for 2025, I think Hadjar will struggle to keep up with Tsunoda and will get caught up battling in the back of the midfield and have too many accidents or damage to kind of make an impact. I don't think I see him out qualifying or finishing higher than Yuki without some kind of anomaly in terms of like a weird red flag or like a puncture or something weird or Tsunoda crashes. I think it's going to take him some time to get used to this car. I don't even think he was 100% used to the F2 car yet, and I think it's going to be a big change for him. So I think he will finish the season with the team, but I think he will be under a lot of pressure for 2026. A lot of people are gunning for that spot in the Red Bull team. Maybe not so much after seeing how they handle this ship, but I guess it's still a pretty coveted spot for now or whatever. But that's my prediction for Isack Hadjar. Let's keep it moving to Jack Doohan on Alpine. So I want to preface this by saying there's been rumors recently, and it's just some different media outlets that say that supposedly, and again, these are just rumors, that Jack Doohan only has a 5-race contract to start the season. So that's a lot of added pressure if that's true. And they've kind of made it known that they're looking at Franco Colapinto as an option. And with him not having a drive for next year, I guess the money they're going to have to pay to acquire him isn't going to be as much because I know there was a big asking price from Williams to let him go somewhere. But anyway, Doohan's been part of the Alpine Academy since 2022 and made his F1 debut a couple weeks ago, replacing Ocon in Abu Dhabi, where he qualified P20 and finished P15. He was the Alpine reserve driver all year, so he wasn't really adding to his race experience and might be getting a little rusty. Who knows? Where in F2 last year he finished P3 and in 2022 finished P6, so showed pretty good consistency and form in F2. Jack Doohan finished the postseason test in Abu Dhabi, P8 behind Pato Ward and Kimi Antonelli, and ahead of some of those other guys we already talked about. Obviously, 8 was Hadjar, and those other guys were like 15 or whatever. But my biggest point from this season is the impending pressure. I do think that the thought that he might only have a couple of races and it's going to take him a bit to get used to the car, and then by the time he gets used to it, he's going to be possibly done. I think the short contract for him is going to be an issue. It's going to be tough for him going up against Pierre Gasly, who has really improved recently and shown great form, and will probably, not be making him look bad, but certainly not going to do him any favors when trying to keep his spot there. If that is true that he has a 5 race contract, that already tells me they have a short leash on him and they're not necessarily committed to him. So I don't think that he'll finish the season with the team. I think that he'll make it till maybe the summer break. But if he's not doing well by then and doesn't have at least a couple of points finishes, I wouldn't be surprised if they get rid of him, honestly. It doesn't seem like they have a whole lot of faith in him, and they're kind of just promoting him maybe because they have to as the reserve driver. Very similar to Liam Lawson, who was contractually obligated to race at least 5 times at the end of this season for Red Bull in order for them to keep him in their team. And it could be a similar situation. So I don't like that for him. I don't know if that will fare well for him. There's no other team for him to go to from here. So I don't think he'll finish with the team, and I don't think he'll have a great season. Maybe he'll have 1 or 2 points finishes, but I think he'll probably get booted at the summer break. Moving on to the last, but certainly not least, rookie on the list, Kimi Antonelli. He had a fast rise through the ranks and joined F4 in 2022, winning the championship there. He raced in Formula Regional in 2023, winning the championships in both the Middle East and the European Championships. He got promoted to F2 the next year, which was obviously this year, and finished P6. And he got some FP1 testing during the F2 season and is coming into a high pressure role next year in Mercedes. Obviously, a lot of expectations. It seems like he's been rushed the most out of any of these rookies and will likely be in the best machinery out of all of them, too. So, high expectations, high risk, possibly high reward. He's been in a good battle all season with Ollie Bearman in F2, and obviously they're teammates at Prima in F2. They were pretty much back and forth all year. Both had some sprint wins, both had some, I don't know if they both had feature wins, but I know they both had some sprint wins and they both did pretty well. Obviously, Antonelli having more points than Bearman because Bearman was like 12th and Antonelli 6th. But anyway, in one of his FP1 runs in Imola, he came out and it was apparent right away that he was pushing. They brought him out in the softs, and you could tell right off the bat. The track was cold. It was the beginning of FP1. It was a green track, and he came out, set a fastest lap. Wasn't the fastest lap, I don't think, maybe at the time, but it was a good competitive lap. Went for a cool down, came back around for the second lap, and sent it too hard into the parabolica here in Imola, and ended up in the wall. At the time, it was pretty apparent that everyone wanted him to push. Toto Wolff, came on the radio, said, "Oh, it's okay, don't worry about it, whatever." Even though he just fucking crashed the car. I think it was George's car at the time too, but um, they definitely have a lot of faith in him coming in, and there's definitely going to be high expectations. And George Russell has obviously came a long way this year, even though he's a little crybaby sometimes. But he had a couple of race wins this year. He thinks he's poised to be a top contender next year, and there's going to be a lot of expectations for Kimi Antonelli, even though he's very inexperienced in comparison to some of these other guys. And with Valtteri Bottas now coming back to Mercedes as the reserve driver, I don't think they'll have a short leash on him, but I don't think they'll be afraid to sub him out if they have to for Valtteri, who's pretty consistent. Um, my prediction for Kimi Antonelli in 2025, I think outside of an anomaly in qualifying, like a poorly timed red flag or some weird shit happening, I don't see Kimi out qualifying George at all this year. And outside of a Russell DNF, I don't see him placing ahead of him at all either. And that's not the worst thing ever. I don't think anybody's probably expecting him to compete like that, but I think he'll be close. I think he'll be a spot or two behind maybe. Maybe it's like a P7, P9 type thing, or P5, P8, whatever. I think they'll be close, but I don't see him ever getting the best of George unless something weird happens, some damage or whatever. I think we could see him somewhere around P10, P12 in the Drivers' Championship. And to wrap up the video, I think the final standings for the rookies, and you kind of have to take in consideration the machinery they're into. I think it's going to be Antonelli, Bearman, Bortoleto, Hadjar, and Jack Doohan. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments about these rookies. It's a big rookie class, the biggest we've seen in 10 years. And the last time we had that big rookie class, it was Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen, who are now race winners, world champions. Carlos Sainz was almost a constructors champion this year, so we could be seeing the next coming of one of these guys. So it's exciting, and yeah, should be a really great season. So let me know what you guys think. I'll keep the content coming. I'm trying, and I'll have some kind of recaps of the year. We're going to do some tier lists and whatnot. So I'll be back with more content. Until then, peace.